Hi all, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet where we discuss all things astrology, and today all things Aquarius full moon August 2022 and you. What this full moon is bringing to the surface within your chart and how it is both congratulating you for the work that you have done while reminding you how much work there is to do. This is one of the most important full moons of the year. And not to say that it is light and fluffy and fun. You might have saw my shirt and been like, this means it's got to be a good moon, right? If we're thriving this full moon. Not necessarily. This full moon is tense. It is loaded with aspects. It is making us very aware of the work that is needed. It is serving as a check-in point from our last eclipses, April and May, as well as a harbinger for the future eclipses, October and November, because this full moon bends the nodes, which means it squares the North Node and it squares the South Node. It is not an eclipse, but it is sort of like an eclipse check-in point. Like, hey, are you doing the work of what came to the surface spring 2022? Because if there is any planet that is going to let you know and is going to serve up the truth straight with no chaser, it is Saturn. And not only is this a Saturn-ruled full moon, but it's also bundled up in the sky with Saturn. And Saturn isn't mean for no reason. Saturn is a teacher. It makes us aware of where it is that we need to do the work and not take the easy way out. But Saturn is not the cool teacher. Saturn is not the teacher who will round up the 79 on your test to a B-. Saturn will serve up the truth, and that's exactly what it's doing this full moon, straight up to you and make you very aware of the work you've done and the work that is left to do. What it is that you have sown this year, you will reap during this full moon, and it'll make it readily apparent. It is not a light and fluffy full moon, which is why I wanted to do a deep dive talking into how this impacts the collective as well as your chart based on what house it falls in within your chart. This is my second video deep diving into the lunations. Typically I do touch on them within my weekly series, Magic Monday. But if you've been enjoying these deep dives, can you just let me know so I can continue to make them? I'm happy to. I just want to make sure that you all are enjoying this. Some of you might be like, I already hear about it in Magic Monday. I don't need to know about it with my chart. So let me know if this style of video resonates with you. And if you gain any value, if you can consider liking, commenting, subscribing, only if I earn it. I do have a Magic Monthly membership with some fun perks if you want to check that out. And without further ado, let's dive in. Aquarius full moon, August 2022, and you. Collective themes. Okay, loves, so this full moon exacts August 11th at 6:36 p.m. PDT. It exacts at 19 degrees Aquarius, and we'll take it through house by house because wherever 19 degrees Aquarius lands in your chart is what this full moon is bringing to the surface, this ongoing tension that that house has been experiencing. So firstly, let's just get a lay of the land around this full moon. So as I mentioned earlier, this full moon is conjoined with Saturn. So what it's really bringing to the surface is if we've been doing our Saturn due diligence. Like I've said, Saturn is not the cool teacher, it's not the lax teacher, it doesn't let things slide, right? It is the teacher that is like, no, you need to earn your grade, you need to put in the work. And where Saturn has been transiting within our chart is what has been tempered. We could be restricted in that area. We could be working really hard, but feeling frustrated at the lack of growth in that area or at the lack of results. Like Saturn is the planet of delayed gratification. So wherever it's going through, it could be an area of pessimism for you. Why is this not happening how it should for me? Like Saturn does give rewards, but it gives it much later. So with this full moon conjoining Saturn, it is illuminating where in life we feel blocked. It can be illuminating where in life we feel pessimistic, where we feel stuck, where we feel stagnant. For some who have been really doing their Saturn work, this full moon can be a celebration of that. It's not going to be light and fluffy. Saturn definitely gives a somber, sober taste to it. But if you're someone where it's like you've been working day in, day out, you've been disciplined, you've been really working to cut out the fluff from your life and really trim down to what's really valuable to you, really being someone of upstanding character and moral value, like this full moon can be an energy that sort of celebrates that work that you've been doing. Maybe not giving you the full reward, but giving you a taste of it, like a little taste of success or what success looks like to you, or at least growth in some area of our life. For some, if you've been ignoring it, like you've been wanting to cut out these bad habits, with this full moon, it could really be bringing to the surface that Saturn whisper around, It's time to be responsible. It's time to be diligent. We shouldn't be, smoking our vape every single day. We shouldn't be breaking the law, whatever it is that, we haven't really been on that straight and narrow path. And with Saturn, I don't want you to feel like you have to be this perfect person in order to reap rewards from this full moon, but it is bringing to the surface the work that we've been doing. And it's like, if you've been on your path, this full moon could be an energy around getting a taste around, okay, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but at least I'm getting this boost that I'm in the right direction. If you've been avoiding the work of where Saturn's transiting within your house, it can be this full moon that's like, hey, here's a weird cough that you have that's burning the surface, how you need to give up vaping. Hey, here's a ticket that comes to the surface that reminds you that, breaking the law does have consequences. It's just a little bit of a reminder around the work that we've been doing and whether we're sort of on track with it. And with this full moon conjoining Saturn, there can be certain emotions of apathy during this time. Just a certain energy around feeling removed or feeling detached or feeling more cold about life, because this full moon is under a lot of stress. So typically during full moons, people, want to party, they want to live life to the fullest. With this full moon and Saturn, you might be really aware of your isolation or how lonely you feel, or even being around people and still feeling lonely. Aquarius is the sign of groups, of connections, of friendships. And with this full moon on Saturn, there can be this energy around feeling lonely in the midst of that, or feeling detached, not being able to be around people, and just feeling this energy around being on the outside looking in some way, and just feeling removed, just feeling detached. And we have to keep in mind that, the Aquarius full moon, and we have to remember that the Aquarius moon opposes Leo sun, which wants to play, wants to have fun, but for whatever reason, whether it's societal pressures or restrictions, we're getting this no energy. It's not time to play, it's not time to have fun. We're under stress, we're under responsibility. We have to keep in mind our obligations and things of the nature. Saturn is making us very aware of that. And adding to this tension, we have Mars and Uranus also squaring the sun and squaring the moon. And so with Mars and Uranus, this really speaks to the ongoing tension of Mars, Uranus, North Node, which I did a whole video on that. If you want to deep dive into where that's activating in your chart, that could also help pull in where this full moon is active within your world. But with it squaring Mars and Uranus, there's almost this energy around being riled up to action. That's why I'm saying, for some people, there might be something that comes to the surface where it's I cannot avoid any longer, that I need to cut out this bad habit, that I need to spend more time with my family, that I need to stop breaking the law, that I need to do this and that and this. Mars and Uranus is an activation point. And we could be more tense during this full moon. I definitely think the month of August in totality with Mars, Uranus, North Node, there's going to be a lot of labor strikes, protests, things of the nature. And this full moon is definitely part of that with it squaring Mars and Uranus. People are feeling powerless, right? With this full moon answering to Saturn, there's this energy around the system is going to win. The structures that be are just going to win. There's nothing that we can do. There is things that we can do, and you are not powerless. But I just want to prepare you that this full moon can make you feel like you are, and to focus on where your work is, whether it is being the best version of yourself, cutting out a bad habit, maybe it's being more active within your community, overcoming those feelings of isolation and loneliness that you feel by doing the work, by reaching out to people. When we say doing the work, it doesn't mean physically working 16 hours a day. It's doing the hard stuff. It's facing the harsh truth of our life head on. And with Mars and Uranus, it's making us readily aware and activating that need to do that work. And things can be unpredictable around the full moon. With the squaring Uranus, there can be certain, conflicts and fights coming to the surface. But I would just really encourage, with this full moon answering to Saturn, gathering with Saturn, face your truth head on. Notice where it is that you are being called to do the work, and do the work. And next I want to go to the Sabian symbol of this full moon. Sabian symbol, if you are unaware, it's essentially a channeled form of meaning for every single astrological degree. And I'm a traditionally trained astrologer. This technique was developed in 1925. So it wasn't something that was part of my coursework or part of my study, but it is something that I felt called to integrate within my practice and within my readings as of late. So this full moon lands at 19 degrees Aquarius. So for Sabian symbols, we add a degree. Thank you, Starboy, for letting me know. So the Sabian symbol for 20 degrees, so this full moon, this might help to color the energy of this full moon, is a big white dove, a message bearer. So Aquarius in astrology is the water bearer, and it's not a water sign. I feel like that's where a lot of people get confused. It is an air sign, and the water that it is bearing is meant to symbolize knowledge and information that it is sharing with the masses. And that's why I love the Sabian symbol, because it's a message bearer, which is like what Aquarius is, right? It's like making us very readily aware what that work is. And with Aquarius full moon, how it's so important for us to band together, find this sense of community, fight for the future, right? And with this energy of the message bearer around being able to communicate with others, and particularly communicate and do the work in more peaceful ways. Like we talk about doves, you know, as a symbol for peace, which was relieving to read, just because with Mars and Uranus, you know, this can be very conflict ridden. It can be very tense. And with this full moon, it does feel like we can have this feeling of hopelessness. And with Mars, you know, people turning to like more violent or more aggressive means to try to regain power and control. Because with this full moon, it just feels like this energy of hopelessness. Like, what's the use? The system is this way and it's always going to be this way. But I love this imagery around a big white dove having a message. And it's like, we can regain our power in ways that are peaceful and that are powerful, and not leaking our energy out, and by being focused on the message that we want to share and where we individually need to do the work. And with Aquarius, it's a sign of the collective. So it does sort of speak to the need of us needing to kind of gather as a collective, or stay focused to the big picture and focus on what message you are here to bear, or where you can do your work. It is not hopeless. You are not hopeless. I did want to prepare you that this full moon can be, you know, charged with feelings of apathy or hopelessness, but this imagery of a Sabian symbol of this big white dove who has a message to share, it reminds me that we all have something beautiful within us to be able to share and to reach out, and your words and your impact and your magic and your offerings can be just the medicine for one other person to feel less alone, or for one other person to feel supported as they go through a major hardship within their world. Like, I really, even though there are some lonely kind of tones to this Aquarius full moon, such as the nature of Aquarius, it's always straddling this juxtaposition around being the popular loner, because it is the sign of the collective, and a lot of Aquarians, you know, are really able to tap into the collective, be someone who's very liked. But on the other side of the coin, there's also the sensation of feeling fundamentally different than other people, and fundamentally more more comfortable at times within own solitude. So just remembering that you have a message to share, and that you can get that message across in dove-like ways, in peaceful, elegant ways, staying focused on where it is that you are being called to do the work personally as well as collectively. So next I'm going to take it house by house, and do know that this full moon lands at 19 degrees Aquarius. So you'll want to look at where 19 degrees Aquarius lands within your chart. Now, this may be the same as the rising sign listed. It may not be. I say the rising sign because if you use whole sign, you could just find your rising sign and that's where the full moon will be. If you use Placidus, like myself, you'll have to look at your chart and physically see where 19 degrees Aquarius, because it may not be the same as the rising sign described. So if the Aquarius full moon, August 11th, 2022, falls in your first house, you may potentially be an Aquarius rising, but not always. My love, you have been doing the work. You've been doing the work, and you might have found that your mind state and your viewpoint has been a little bit more responsible. You could have had to get more responsible. You could have had to ascend to a new level of commitment within your world, whether that's, you know, getting married, taking on a new position, starting a business. There's something that's made you rise up. And with that, you could have had to get a little bit more serious about your goals, and you could have just had more pressure placed on you, whether it's your family pressing pressure on you. You've had to be a lot for a lot of different people, and it can be very draining. And when it comes to your own outlook, it might be hard to sort of tap into feelings of just like joy and lightness, because you have Saturn in your first house. So you're having to look out at the world through this very Saturnian lens. Now, do keep in mind, you are Saturn-ruled, so you and Saturn are like pretty much buddies, but nevertheless, with Saturn in the first house, it makes you get more serious and somber when it comes to your outlook and when it comes to your identity. And with this full moon in the first house, it's really bringing to the surface, who is it that you want to be? And are you living up to what it is that you want to be known for? Like, Saturn is the planet of time. So with this full moon conjoining Saturn, it's like, are you projecting the person that you want to be known for in 5 years? Like, would the version of yourself that you want to step up as, the leader you want to step up as, have the outlook that you have today, have the identity that you have today? Because this is a very self-oriented house. So it's really a full moon that brings to the surface, who am I? Who is it that I want to be moving forward? Am I doing the work to crystallize the person that I want to be and what I want to be known as for other people? And with this full moon, when it lands in the first house, there can be certain themes coming to the surface around body, around, your physical appearance, things of the nature. A lot of times with Saturn in the first house, people get more disciplined about that. And this full moon is going to bring to the surface. If you've been doing that work, you might get sort of like a harbinger feeling around you're on the right path. So just feeling really confident in your own skin, feeling like, wow, my discipline is really paying off. If you've sort of been avoiding it, this full moon could sort of bring to the surface this desire to want to activate more Saturn energy within that sector of your life. Obviously, no pressure. That message will only be for a couple of people who have been leaning into that, not necessarily everybody. And truly, this full moon is bringing to the surface your own responsibility, your own diligence, what it is that you want to build and wish to build within this world, and really crystallizing the person you want to be. And I highlight this because it's, opposing the sun, which is in the 7th house. So it's this major showdown between self and other. And if you can fully be yourself, as well as the person you want to be within your one-to-one connections, there can be certain pressures or illuminations within your relationships of realizing moments that you step out of integrity and trying to be everything for everyone. Because I also see, with the building Mars, Uranus, North Node conjunction likely landing in your 4th house of home and family, there can be certain family obligations, people wanting you to be a certain role within family, roommates wanting you to be a certain way. It's like everybody wants you to be something or to be their rock or something of the nature, especially with Saturn in the first house. Like, you've had to be the strong one. You've had to get more disciplined about your world. And it's really a full moon to come back to, okay, who am I outside of what all of these people want me to be? You do have Aquarius in your first house. Part of your makeup is to rebel. It is to challenge convention, is to be your own person, no matter how weird or how different that is perceived by other people. If you were to look at your life in 5 years and look back at this time, like, would you be proud of yourself if you're like, wow, I just played the role that everybody else wanted me to do without diving deep into who it was that I wanted to transform into? And I keep giving you this test of time because Saturn is the planet of time. So I want you to think of the version of yourself you want to show up as, and really contemplate when you step out of integrity within your one-to-one contacts and within your family relationships, and choose yourself. With Saturn in the first house, you are being asked to, be more disciplined about choosing yourself, being your own person. So if 19 degrees Aquarius lands in your 2nd house, this message is for you. You may potentially be a Capricorn rising, but not always. So listen to the reading where you have 19 degrees Aquarius. So this is sort of an illumination point around your finances, and beyond just finances, also how it is and where it is you have been valuing yourself. Because with Saturn in 2nd house, sure, oftentimes we can feel certain restrictions and blockages around money. Like, there's less cash flow coming in, we're having to get more responsible about money, maybe some new, desires, like you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, has made you have to cut back. There's this energy of scarcity around your financial situation. And with this full moon, it will bring that to the surface. So if you've been doing the Saturn work, really thinking long term when it comes to your finances, this can be a full moon around feeling this energy of a reward for the work that you've been doing. If you've been avoiding it, this full moon is going to bring to the surface this need at this time to think rationally and think long term when it comes to your investments, your finances. And beyond that, love, I want you to also think of just values, how it is that you've been valuing yourself. Have you been undervaluing yourself? This full moon is going to bring that to the surface. Like, it's not the most abundant, so it's like not me saying necessarily that you should raise your prices and all of that, but it can make you aware of how you're undervaluing yourself, and that can show up monetarily, sure, but also in other facets of your life. This full moon can bring to the surface, dang, I don't value my skill set. Like, I don't value the person that I am. I'm giving my energy out for free. I'm giving my energy out to so many people and being like so accessible, and like, what am I really getting in return? It's sort of bringing that energy up to the surface, and I want you to be mindful because this full moon does square Mars and Uranus. So it's not the time to take unnecessary risks, as this does land potentially within your 5th house of fun, of play, of gambling. Like, there can be this desire that you're feeling where it's like, okay, I need to think long term when it comes to my finances. But with this squaring Mars and Uranus, for those of you who, you know, aren't leaning into Saturn, there can be this desire to just avoid it, just have fun, just worry about that tomorrow. And it's not that that's wrong, because you have North Node within that sector, so it like is something that the cosmos are pushing you into, having more fun, creating, experimenting with self-expression, being your own person, honoring your own inner child. It's not that that's wrong, but with this full moon, you can just feel more impulsive or wanting to avoid the Saturn work by just having fun today. See if you can balance the two, like having fun today while also planning for a rainy day tomorrow. Because Saturn, it's not mean, it's just trying to get you to think pragmatically and realistically about your financial future. Not to say don't spend $1, cut everything down, but it is saying, okay, how are your investments? How's your debt looking? How can we make little steps today in order to be proud of ourselves tomorrow? Think of your tomorrow you and keep making that person happy. And part of that is around realizing the value that you have. Like with Saturn in 2nd house, you could be being really hard on yourself. Your self-esteem could have taken a hit, and that echoes into other avenues of your life. Like when you undervalue your rates in your business, you could also undervalue, you know, your worth when you get to that date. Value echoes out into all of our reality as we know it. So just really important during this full moon. Yes, it's more somber full moon, but just realizing the value that you have, keep showing up as your higher self and know your worth truly. So if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the 3rd house within your natal chart, this reading is for you. You may be a Sagittarius rising, but not necessarily. So go by the reading of which house you have 19 degrees Aquarius. So my loves, for those who have this full moon illuminating this 3rd house, it is illuminating your mind and your mental processes and how it is that you talk to yourself and talk to others. And it is bringing to the surface the weight of words. So for some of you, there could be certain consequences. Like some of you said in passing online that has ramifications, or someone took it out of context. If you work in sales, marketing, anything that has to do with like online, basically is 3rd house, there can be certain pressures there. How is it that you want to express yourself? How it is that you want to communicate the person that you are? With Saturn, you're really having to think long term about it. And as a result, you know, you can be finding that you're kind of just in a more negative headspace. And this full moon, you can really be feeling the weight around, you know, your own pessimism, how it is that you talk to yourself. Like with this full moon bringing to the surface your Saturn work, it is illuminating your words. There can be this moment of, you know, ramifications if your words were used carelessly or something of the nature, but also that peak of success or of gratification if you do work in one of the aforementioned fields, or if you're a writer or anything of the nature. If you've been chipping away day in and day out, this full moon can be bringing to the surface a winning of an award or like some exciting boost in stats, like something that's telling, like Saturn basically telling you, keep going, you know, you're having discipline, keep working towards it. It's going to bring to the surface essentially your language, how it is that you use it. For those who are in school, it could also be bringing to the surface your schooling, your education. Perhaps for some of you, there can be a aha moment around a certain certification you want to get or a class you want to enroll in, how it is that you want to logically and pragmatically learn new things, expand your mind. I just want you to be mindful because with this full moon, it can really be bringing to the surface your mental processes. And a lot of you can be feeling more pessimistic. I mean, you're getting this cosmic nudge because likely if you have this, you have Mars, Uranus, North Node gathering within your 6th house of day to day. There can be this energy around, is this all that there is? Like you're being asked to slug through the daily grind and things of the nature. And for some of you with Mars, Uranus, you're really craving something new within your like immediate surrounding, within your workplace, within your offering to this world. But with Saturn in the 3rd house, there is this pull around, well, this is all I'm good at. This is the, you know, the world that I'm in, keep slogging through. And it's not to say that this full moon you need to change at all. Like Mars Uranus, I've mentioned this in the other video, like Mars Uranus is making us aware of what needs changing within your daily routine. And this full moon might bring to the surface how your mindset also plays into that, how it is that you talk to yourself, like the kind of narrative that you frame your experience. Like, are you just going to work being like, oh, I hate this job. This is the worst. I'm the worst. Like with this full moon, it can also bring to the surface how you might need discipline from mental level around, okay, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I know it can be annoying at times, but this full moon can be bringing to the surface how important that mental fortitude is to have as you walk into new experiences and things of that nature. Other themes that could come up with this full moon, third house is also siblings. It is also our immediate neighborhoods. That could also be themes that come up with this full moon. And it's interesting for you, loves, because, you know, with these energies kind of happening in houses that are about your daily environment, because third house is the environment that you're surrounded by, sixth house is like your workplace, your daily routine. A lot of you are really feeling called to ground down, like to root down. And the Leo sun is beckoning, and some of you, not all, will have Sagittarius rising. Usually you guys are quite the traveling people, but there could just be this call right now, like I need to ground down, I need to simplify my daily routine, I need to get a hold of my mental processes, I need to perfect my craft, I need to improve my craft. You're really feeling this call towards responsibility around your daily environment rather than running away, running away from it, right? And running away from that work. So love, this reading is for you if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the fourth house of your birth chart. Now, fourth house governs home, family, emotional state, and this full moon is going to illuminate this area of your life. So loves, with it, it's going to make you aware of the work that is needed within this sector, or perhaps the work that you've been doing. If you've had some family drama going on while Saturn's been in the fourth house, you might be feeling more isolated or detached from family members. This full moon can really bring that ongoing tension to the surface. This can also be tension around roommates, landlords, anything involving your living situation. And since you have Saturn in this fourth house, you know, your living situation hasn't been ideal. There's been this energy of restriction. You're being asked to sort of step up, whether it's, you know, taking on more responsibility as like a homeowner, or having to really like invest in furniture in order to make your home as comfy and as lovely as possible. With Saturn in the fourth house, it's really making you aware of the work that is needed to maintain and to create a happy home. You can be feeling more blocked emotionally. And it's interesting with this landing within your chart, because it's like all sectors of your chart are being lit up in angular houses. So you can just feel this pull around, all of these people want different things from me. How can I be enough for you and also have some for me as well? So for some of you, whether this is with family or emotional, you are being asked to put down boundaries, to be like, I cannot be everything for you and also be enough for me. It's calling for this energy around making sure parts to you are sacred, parts to you that are kept for you, that you're not being everything to everyone. Now, the North Node and Mars and Uranus are asking for a new way of relating with people. So with this full moon, it can be like, I know I'm usually the one who's always there for you whenever you need a favor, but in order to protect my mental health, my emotional health, I need to draw this boundary. You could be drawing boundaries with family members, roommates, landlords, whatever it is. I do want to let you know, when it comes to this full moon landing in a very sacred place, you know, there can be this energy of either blockages or restrictions felt within your home. So certain repairs that are needed, stressors within roommates, stress within family units, but just ensuring that you're also taking care of yourself as you're taking care of those elements of your life as well. So love, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within your fifth house, this reading is for you. You may be a Libra rising, but not necessarily. So make sure to go by where you have 19 degrees Aquarius within your chart. So love, this full moon is bringing to the surface your play, your creativity, your self-expression, the person that you are. And it's interesting because you have Saturn in the sector, so you've had to work at your play, so to speak. Like, a lot of you can find that certain hobbies you used to love don't have the same appeal. You still love partying, you just view it differently. Some of you could have taken a hobby or something that you did for fun and turned it into work or something responsible. And this full moon is really bringing to the surface this need for a different version or a different way to have fun, right? And some of you, your sense of fun might be changing because of money struggles, because you do have North Node, Mars, Uranus meeting up in your 8th house, which is calling for you to receive support from other people, lean on the contacts within your world. And you have South Node in the 2nd house. So whether it's you're less interested in making money or it's just more challenging for you to make money right now, that could also be a source of tension of of why you're developing new senses of fun. Maybe you used to love going to the mall and spending lots of money, and you're like, okay, I need to cut back a little bit. I need to think a bit more responsibly when it comes to my recreation or my leisure time. That may not be the case for everybody, but I do want to highlight with this full moon bringing to the surface, what is it that I find fun? What is my creative outlet? Some of you, your Saturn work could be find a hobby, like rather than monetizing everything that you enjoy, find something you do just for its own sake, something that just turns your mind off from the stressors and the pressures of the world. Like find something that just lights you up genuinely. And for some of you, if you have children, there can be certain pressures building there as well. There can be certain arguments that you have with your spouse around money troubles, as this does aspect Mars and Uranus in your 8th house of shared income. So just something to be mindful of. Other arenas that you can feel this full moon building is in your dating life. For a lot of you with Saturn here, you have not been in the mood to casually date. Or if you have been dating, you've been dating people either that you see a future with and you're getting really real about your dating world, or they're Saturnian in some way, perhaps older or more mature and more stable. That's what you're drawn to at this time. If they're not that, you really are not about it. Like with Saturn restricting this area, you are not in the mood to just date just for dating's sake. And this full moon can bring that to the surface, as well as sort of test anybody that you're casually dating, any situationships, to be like, okay, are we doing this or not? I also want to bring to the surface that 5th house governs children. So for those who have this, who have children, there can be certain challenges and hardships coming up around them, or just needing to be stricter or something of that nature, as well as some blockages in regards to your creativity. Because with Saturn in the 5th house, yes, it can be creative block energy, but Saturn can be asking you to have discipline about it. So if you are a creator, love, while you might not be feeling inspired, this energy in this full moon is reminding you that true artists show up day in and day out. Like, we think of artists and creators as people who are all over the place, but it takes discipline to sit down and write and paint and create music or whatever your expression is. So I just want to say, even though you might not be feeling it, because Saturn does restrict, I want to encourage you to have discipline if you are someone who identifies as creative. So if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the 6th house of your natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Virgo rising, but not always. So make sure to go by the reading of which house you have 19 degrees Aquarius. So my love, you are a busy bee always, but particularly with Saturn in the 6th house. I mean, have been fist fighting with time. It feels like time is not on your side, because it's impacting your day-to-day. And so you've had to get so disciplined. You can find that you never have enough time for anything. You had to be really, really disciplined about saying no, about honoring your boundaries. And that's really coming to the surface with this full moon. You cannot be everything to everybody. You cannot say yes to every single project. This Saturn is going to bring the surface that you have limited time, and you need to make sure to put that time towards what it is that you genuinely want to give to. Like 6th house has to do with our errands, things that we do every single day. It's like if you have 35 plants, you have to water 35 plants, at least once a week, right? If you have pets, you have to take care of them all of the time. Like it really brings to the surface our obligations and whether we're honoring them and whether we have energy to give to all of these different components and aspects of our world. And for some of you, 6th house is health. It can bring to the surface like, okay, it's time to stop vaping. It's time to stop eating junk food. Like Saturn will remind you of the work that's needed within this area of your chart. And where, the nodes are impacting your chart, you're really being called to focus on the big picture of your world. And it's like also saying no to some projects frees you up for the big heartfelt yes, the big picture projects that you want to say yes to at this time, rather than just all the minutia that fills your day to day. And health impacts that because for you to, travel and to develop spiritually and all of these things, you want to make sure you have the energy and the well-being in order to pursue that. So with Saturn in the 6th house, you are being asked to be more disciplined about your daily routine as well as about your health. I want to highlight that 6th house is coworkers as well as work projects. So you can be more busy, have a lot on your plate, as well as need to have boundaries when it comes to your coworkers. So if you are always taking on projects for Marsha, this might be a time that the Saturn boundaries are sort of coming into place because you cannot do it all. Even you, with a lot of those who have this, are Virgo risings. Even Virgo risings, you can't do it all. And 6th house is also pets, small animals. And no fear at all, I just want to let you know that with Saturn there can be extra responsibility that is needed within your pets or just your errands, like anything that you sort of like take care of within your daily life. Expect a lot more errands, a lot more projects, a lot more busyness, a lot more people depending on you. My loves, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within your 7th house, you may potentially be a Leo rising, not always. So make sure to go by where you have 19 degrees Aquarius within your natal chart. My cosmic beings, where you've been doing the work is around relationships and one-to-ones. If you are in a committed partnership, Saturn has been making you well aware of the work that is needed to maintain that connection. Your relationship could have been plagued by, some stressors, some stuff that made the connection feel like all work and no play. And this full moon might bring that up to the surface. But couples have two options when Saturn's in their 7th, grow together or grow apart. So I just want to say, if things have been dry, it's been hard within your connection. It's been all bills and obligations and not as much just like, honeymoon travels. Like, this is a time to do the work, and Saturn, this full moon, can reveal where exactly that work is needed, how it is that your partner is feeling within this connection. Now, if you are single, you can be feeling the sense of isolation or loneliness. You can be feeling more pessimistic about your relationship status if you do want to be dating someone. And with Saturn 7th house, it's really illuminating, your standards within connections, and you really shouldn't lower them. And this has to do beyond just romantic. This is like business partnerships, any one-to-one contact. It's really bringing to the surface, okay, you can meet me here because I cannot lean down to meet you there, no matter how, lonely or isolated I feel, because it's not a you thing. It's just a Saturn-ruled full moon. A lot of us can be grappling with these feelings of loneliness or powerlessness. Like, I want you to feel what comes to the surface, certainly, and Saturn's there, so you can have more somber outlook, but know that you are worthy of someone who meets you here. Like, Saturn reminds you of your standards. And with Saturn in the 7th house, it's really defining the foundation about what you will and what you will not tolerate within a connection and relationship. Now, you are being pulled in a million different directions because you have Mars, Uranus, and North Node lining up your 10th house. So it's a big time of growth within your career. So it's also like bringing to the surface, like, you only have limited time. You can't be everything to everybody. You can't just go on dates just for the sake of it when you're having this major growth, or for some of you, a pivot within your career and public persona. So it's like really making you aware of, the limits of time, and that you can't be everywhere at once, and that someone either needs to really add to your life or simply not be in it at all. So if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within your 8th house, you may potentially be a Cancer rising, not always. Go by the reading of which house you have 19 degrees Aquarius. With Saturn in the 8th, a lot of you have been doing some really deep shadow work. Like, you've had to really get to the surface around the stuff that you would rather avoid. You've had to really go deep into your shadow and into your fears and into your trauma and your anxieties, really digging deep into your world with Saturn in this sector. And the portion of your chart that you're being nudged into and the eclipses are pushing you towards is around your hopes and dreams, your hopes for tomorrow. And I feel that you're being asked to sort of do this work around the shadow self and your fears and your anxieties, because there can be certain self-sabotaging fears that you have that are blocking your pathway to success. So like, you want to blow up on social media, but you haven't dealt with your underlying fear of visibility. Like with Saturn in the 8th house, it's like, okay, you want that, but have you worked through the mindset blocks that it would take to arise to that version of yourself? And it also brings to the surface with Saturn in the 8th house how much you trust the process. And with Saturn in the 8th, like, this has to do with, yes, trust. It's like a metaphysical concept, like trust in the universe. So again, the transformation that you're looking for, it might not happen in sweeping ways. It's sort of asking you to show up day in and day out and be devoted to your own transformation of your world. And also ask for deeper trust when it comes to your relationships. If you are in a partnership where there are shared finances, that's this sector. So for some of you, this could be a time that you and your partner are under more financial stress. Your partner is under financial stress. There can be stress that relates from alimony, child support, taxes, anything of that nature. And with Saturn, I'm telling you right now, face those things head on. This is not the time to try to save some bucks on your tax return by hiding income. Like, not that this is necessarily tax time, but I'm just letting you know, like, this full moon is sort of making us aware of consequences. And 8th house, beyond just death, it's also legacy, like what it is that we want to leave here. And it's also like bringing to the surface, like, do you want to be this person? Because the thing about Saturn lunations, it's like what it is that we have sown, we reap. Like, we cannot take the easy way out when Saturn is involved. So when it comes to 8th house matters, strive to be as transparent and as honest as possible, whether that happens with taxes, you know, your funds in your business partnership, your funds in your marriage. Be honest, do the work day in and day out, because with, you know, a lot thrusting you into 11th house, you're being asked to connect with like-minded people. You're being asked to prioritize your hopes and dreams. And this is interesting because this full moon is bringing to the surface, yes, your shadow, where it is that you have fears around trust, fears around change, but it's bringing that to the surface in order to continue to thrust you into your hopes and dreams and building your future. Like, you can't really build your future until you've dealt with your past, right? And that's what this full moon is sort of activating within your chart, as well as having trust in the process. Like, you are exactly where you are meant to be. With Saturn in the 8th house, you could feel frustrated that the transformation you're craving isn't happening in a sweeping way, but I'm telling you right now, it is coming. Delayed gratification is the vibe with Saturn. So my love, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the 9th house of your astrological natal chart, you may potentially be a Gemini rising, not always though. So I want you to just go by which house you have 19 degrees Aquarius. This full moon is really bringing to the surface what it is that you believe in. This full moon is bringing to the surface your faith, your spirituality, and like a lot of you had been working on it, honestly, because with Saturn, it can block the house that it's going through. So a lot of you can be feeling this energy around not necessarily resonating with spirituality as much. Like, there can be certain readers that you go to and you're like, I don't connect as deeply for some reason. Some of you could be really deep diving into really wanting to understand the origins of what it is that you believe in, really wanting to get to the core of what it is that you believe, to ensure it's built on a steady foundation, you know, like really feeling aligned with the religion and the spirituality that you practice. For some of you, you could have been doing the work around, you know, I used to be Christian, it's just not aligning with me. It really is this call around what is it that I believe in? And for some of you, you could have recently enrolled in higher education or been thinking about higher education. That could also come to the surface with this full moon. Like, there could be this nudge around, okay, this is what I want my future to look like. I need education to get there. Let me enroll or let me get classes done so I can be on my pathway in order to get there. Like with Saturn, slow and steady works best at this time. If you have any travel plans around this time, there can be certain blockages. Definitely give yourself lots of time to get to where you're going. Ensure your visa and your passport is all aligned. This is not the time to take risks when you are traveling. Like, definitely in typical Saturn fashion, double check, think responsibly. So love, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the 10th house of your chart, you may potentially be a Taurus rising, not always though. So make sure to go and listen to the reading of the house of where you have 19 degrees Aquarius. So this is really bringing to the surface what you have been working on within your career. Now, if you've been working hard, this can be a time around getting, you know, this delayed gratification, around getting some rewards for the efforts that you've been exerting. Lots of you have been working really hard. You could be feeling like you're being tested by authority figures. Your bosses are giving you more responsibility. You're having to deal with more pressure. You can be feeling this sensation around not earning your fair rate or something of the nature. It can be bringing to the surface like you're on the right path, keep going, whether that shows up in a raise or really happy client. This is bringing up a lot of energy around your career, your public persona. So if you've been working really hard, for example, like let's say you're working really hard on your online, you know, reputation, this can be energy that you see like a boost in stats if you've been working hard day in and day out. For some of you, honest, I'll be totally forthright, this can be a time of heightened stress at work because it's activating all these angular houses within your chart, and you are having Mars, Uranus, North Node in your first house likely. So you've been really craving change. You've been craving showing up in brand new ways. You've been putting yourself first. And with Saturn in the 10th house, your career might not necessarily feel aligned. Now, this isn't the time that I would quit because again, Saturn in the 10th house, sort of a testing period. It's time that we can reap a lot of results, but on the path, it's like having to work really hard for those results and having to put in a lot of effort in order to reap those rewards. But it can make you aware around, okay, this is too much pressure on me. For some, you could be really feeling this call around having deeper boundaries when it comes to an authority figure, a boss. It's like, I can't be everywhere all at once. I can't be true to myself and true to you too. Like, there will be a lot of workplace pressure and a lot more energy going into your career. For some of you, can be feeling that pressure in other ways. Like for example, if you If you're like entering the job force with Saturn, it can be, you know, getting into a new role where it's like, ah, this is so much work. I have so much pressure on me. How can I be everything to everyone? How can I balance all these different components of our life? But with Saturn, keep doing the work, keep showing up day in and day out. You know, Saturn can be mean at times, but it's not mean for no reason. It teaches us discipline and it teaches us the value and the virtue of patience. So I just want to say things can get tense, particularly around career, public persona, your boss, your authority figure, but good things come to those who wait when Saturn's involved. So love, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius within the 11th house of your natal chart, you may potentially be at Aries rising, not always though, so just go by the reading of which house this full moon, 19 degrees Aquarius, lands in your chart. So love, this full moon landing in your 11th house is lighting up your friendships, your community, your hopes and dreams for the future. A lot of you have been feeling really lonely when it comes to your friendships. You could have had certain friends move away. You could have been feeling less connected to your friend groups, and this full moon might bring that to the surface. And what it's doing, because oftentimes in Saturn's in the 11th house, it's like, where'd everyone go? And they might be great people, but what Saturn's doing is it's really making us get more disciplined about who it is that we want to be surrounded by, and ensuring that we're surrounded by people who truly are like-minded. And the full moon can be bringing that energy to the surface. And the cosmos with, you know, Mars and Uranus and North Node, it's really putting a lot of energy towards your money situation, you know, getting your money up, all of that. So that's all well and good to focus on. But with Saturn in the 11th house, you're really being asked to think about your future and your hopes and dreams and put in the effort towards them day in and day out. And some of you could be really frustrated that you're not where you want to be in regards to your higher self and things of that nature. With this full moon, it could be really making you aware of, okay, in 12 years time, this is where I want to be. Taking the actions to be that person now. Like, what would your higher self get up? What would your higher self get up and do? What would they eat for breakfast? What would their friend groups look like? It's really asking you to dial into your higher self and to start to show up as them. And for some of you, I did highlight that, you know, Saturn 11th house can make us feel more lonely, but Saturn 11th can also ask us to put in the work around finding individuals who are like-minded. So perhaps around this full moon, you know, you can feel lonely or isolated from the other people, but maybe you put in the effort around, okay, let me find a club of people who are like-minded. Let me go to this event, even if it's slightly awkward, where I could connect with someone that I vibe with. Like with Saturn, you know, it's not the easiest, but it is fulfilling and worthwhile. And Saturn builds that sector of our chart on a solid foundation. So this full moon is bringing to the surface the work that is needed in either trimming your friendship groups or making new friends who are like-minded and support your higher self and your hopes and dreams. So love, if you have 19 degrees Aquarius located within the 12th house of your natal chart, this reading is for you. Now, you may potentially be a Pisces rising, not always though. Just listen to the reading of which house you have 19 degrees Aquarius within, even if the suggested rising sign is different. I just mentioned it for those who use whole sign or who may not know how to find the degrees within their chart. So this full moon is bringing to the surface where your healing is needed at this time, because 12th house can be kind of the house around silent suffering. It can be the house of isolation and solitude. It's essentially like what we have like in the dark night of the soul, right? And it's not to say that this full moon will be necessarily timed with the dark night of the soul within your life. It may, but it is this call around healing and doing the deep inner mindset, subconscious work. And for some of you, if you've been escaping your problems and where it is that, you know, you do need healing or you do need to look at that. For some of you, you may be asked to really dig deep during this full moon, to really deal with the skeletons in your closet, the things that you avoid, you run from, you escape from. For some of you, you can get sober during this influence or realize that that's something that you want, because it's going through this house of how it is that we escape. So with Saturn in the 12th house, some of you, this full moon could be like, wow, I thought I was just doing this for fun, but now I'm realizing it's to cope, it's to run from all this stuff. This is such a beautiful time to really connect spiritually and to be disciplined. Like Saturn actually is pretty cozy in the 12th house. It's in its joy there. So it's not necessarily the worst transit ever. It can be somber. It really asks us to look at how it is that we cope and to deal with that head on and to make the shifts necessary. And this is a sector that governs how it is that we connect with the other side, paranormal, things of that nature. And, you know, with Saturn on the moon, it can be diving deep into maybe supporting ourselves with the tools for that healing, whether it is something metaphysical or something like therapy or anything of the nature. With this Mars, Uranus, North Node also sort of activating our third house of mind, a lot of you have to look at how it is that you talk to yourself, because with Saturn, you know, it can be a more pessimistic energy. It's almost like going into situations and being like, you can't do that, there's no way. And it's like, what if I told you your dreams were just on the other side of how it is that you mentally block yourself or talk yourself out of things, right? Saturn does remind us that it takes work, and where it's activating within your chart, it's almost like how you could be blocking your own blessings, or how it is that you could be talking down to yourself or running from your problems or not facing what is needed head on, where it is that you want to grow and where it is that you want to learn head on. 12th house is the house of self-undoing, and it's not something that you should undo yourself, really, with Saturn strengthening the sector around really looking at your self-sabotaging behaviors. This is going to be a powerful full moon for you, truly. I mean, I know it's in the hidden house, but it's really going to make these things that are hidden, bring them to light, and not necessarily in the most light and fluffy way. Like, Saturn's really going to make you look at that stuff, but I promise you, you'll be a stronger, more resilient, more powerful person because of it, and more kind of free from how it is you've been imprisoning yourself via these mental patterns and things of the like. So this full moon is an intense one. I'm sending you all so much love. This too shall pass. Saturn is bringing to the surface where we need to do this work, and we can try to run from it and escape, but I promise Saturn is a very valuable teacher. It's a little mean with its techniques, but it is very valuable. So long as we do the work, show up day in and day out, be patient with the process of where it's sort of refining in our chart, and keep showing up as your higher self. Saturn is the planet of time, so this full moon is really going to bring to the surface who is it that you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and are you showing up as that person today? Love. My Instagram handle is @HaleyCometAstrology. My TikTok is the same. Make sure to check out Magic Monthly if you want in on that magic every single month. And let me know if you want me to continue doing these moon videos. It's a new form of content for me. I'm having a lot of fun with them, but I want to make sure that I'm creating the videos that are most helpful and most valuable for my community. So until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.